My best friend's fiancé is jealous of me and wants me out of his life. He broke off the engagement. How can I help reassure her and calm him down? Hey all. Troy and I have been best friends for over a decade, sharing a bond that has withstood the test of time, trauma, and the inevitable challenges of growing up. We first met in 8th grade, and from the moment we connected, it felt like we understood each other in ways most people couldn't. Along with our other best friend, Adam, the three of us became inseparable, doing nearly everything together throughout high school. Whether it was late-night study sessions, video game marathons, or simply hanging out and dreaming about the future, our trio was a constant source of support and laughter. High school, however, wasn't without its difficulties. All three of us faced our own share of personal losses and challenges. Troy and Adam both dealt with significant problems at home, and during one particularly tumultuous period, they both ended up staying at my house for a couple of months. It was a time that brought us even closer, creating a level of dependence on one another that went beyond typical friendship. We leaned on each other not just for emotional support but for a sense of stability and family. By the time we graduated, our bond felt unbreakable. When it came time for college, the three of us ended up going to different schools. While this physical separation was difficult, we made it a point to stay in touch. Almost every other day we would FaceTime or message, updating each other on our lives and keeping the connection alive. However, as time went on, it became clear that our constant communication, while comforting, was also reinforcing a sense of codependency that made it hard for any of us to fully adapt to our new environments or build relationships outside our trio. During his sophomore year of college, Troy began dating Emily, the woman who would eventually become his fiancée. From the beginning, Troy was very open about our friendship with her, explaining that Adam and I were his closest friends and that he shared everything with us. For a while, Emily seemed to accept this dynamic, and when Adam and I first met her during one of our visits to Troy, she was kind and welcoming, albeit a little awkward. At the time, I thought her awkwardness was understandable given how close-knit we were as friends, and I didn't think much of it. However, looking back, it's clear that those visits may have sown the seeds of tension. During our trips, Troy would often prioritize spending time with Adam and me, sometimes neglecting Emily in the process. When we pointed this out to him, he would dismiss it, saying that he saw her every day but only got to see us a couple of times a year. While I didn't feel it was my place to intervene, I now realize how this pattern might have contributed to her growing resentment toward me. Years went by, and Troy and Emily's relationship progressed to the point where they became engaged. While I was thrilled for them, I could sense that Emily's feelings toward me had cooled significantly over time. Then earlier this year, tragedy struck. Adam, who had always been a constant source of support and humor in our lives, took his own life without any warning. The loss was devastating for both Troy and me, shaking the very foundation of our friendship and leaving us grappling with unimaginable grief. In the aftermath of Adam's death, I found myself struggling to cope. Living alone in my apartment during the COVID lockdown only amplified my feelings of isolation and despair. When I expressed this to Troy, he dropped everything to come stay with me for a few weeks. His presence was a lifeline, providing much-needed comfort and understanding as we navigated our shared grief. We spent countless hours talking about Adam, our memories together, and the guilt we both felt, even though we knew deep down that we weren't to blame. Unfortunately, Troy's decision to stay with me didn't sit well with Emily. One day, she called him and demanded that he return to their apartment, accusing him of cheating on her with me. Her accusations shocked both of us, as there was nothing romantic or inappropriate about our friendship. When Troy tried to explain that he needed my support during this difficult time, Emily gave him an ultimatum: choose her or me. Hurt and frustrated, Troy told her that it was unfair to make him choose between two important people in his life. He said that if she couldn't understand his grief and his need for my support, perhaps they weren't meant to be together. This led to a heated argument, and Emily ultimately decided to take some time to cool off and think. A few days later, Emily reached out to me directly. She asked if I had feelings for Troy, to which I responded that I loved him like a brother, nothing more. When she pressed me further, suggesting that if I truly cared about him, I would take a step back and let her have him, I told her that this was a conversation she needed to have with Troy. Frustrated, she hung up on me, and I immediately informed Troy about the exchange. Upon hearing what had happened, Troy called Emily and in an emotional moment, broke off their engagement. While I understood Troy's anger and hurt, I couldn't help but feel responsible for their breakup. I tried to talk him out of it, encouraging him to reconsider and take time to process his emotions. Since then, Troy has reached out to Emily, and they've agreed to have a conversation in the coming days to see if they can work things out. In the meantime, Troy and I have decided to take some space from each other to reflect on everything that has happened. He's staying at my apartment while I'm temporarily living with a coworker. This entire situation has been a wake-up call for me. I've realized that while my intentions were never to come between Troy and Emily, my relationship with him has had unintended consequences for their relationship. Moving forward, I'm committed to setting healthier boundaries and ensuring that my friendships don't negatively impact the people I care about. For now, I'm focused on supporting Troy as he navigates this challenging time, while also working on my own healing and growth. While Troy and I have taken steps to create some distance, the time apart has given me space to reflect more deeply on my role in everything that's happened. Over the years, I unknowingly became an integral part of Troy's life in a way that likely made it difficult for him to fully invest in other relationships. It wasn't intentional, but the closeness we developed through years of shared experiences and mutual reliance may have overshadowed his ability to strike a healthy balance between his friendships and his romantic relationship with Emily. Looking back, I can see how some of my actions might have been interpreted as overstepping boundaries. From our constant communication to the way we prioritized each other during visits, I didn't realize how much it might have affected Emily's sense of security in their relationship. While I believed I was simply being a supportive friend, I now understand that the dynamics of my friendship with Troy likely made it challenging for Emily to feel fully included or valued. When Adam was alive, he was the third pillar in our trio, which provided a balance to the dynamic. After his death, the weight of grief and the absence of that balance amplified Troy's and my dependence on each other. While grief is a deeply personal process, it's clear to me now that my reliance on Troy during this time might have inadvertently caused further strain on his relationship with Emily. My grief, while valid, wasn't a justification for leaning so heavily on someone who was also navigating the loss of one of his closest friends and trying to maintain a life with his fiancée. Emily's frustrations, while hurtful in how they were expressed, stemmed from real feelings of exclusion and insecurity. Her anger about Troy staying with me wasn't simply about the physical proximity, it was about the emotional closeness she perceived as a threat to her relationship. While I don't believe her accusations of cheating were fair or grounded in reality, I can empathize with how she might have felt sidelined, especially given the unique bond Troy and I share. As for Troy, his decision to break off the engagement was clearly driven by the intensity of the situation and his emotional exhaustion. He felt cornered by Emily's ultimatum and responded in a way that reflected his immediate frustration rather than long-term consideration. I wish I had been more proactive in de-escalating the situation, perhaps by stepping back sooner or helping him see a way to reconcile with Emily without feeling forced to choose between her and me. Now, as I work on healing and growing, I'm focusing on two key areas. First, I'm continuing therapy to better understand my own needs and boundaries. Losing Adam was an unimaginable blow, but it also illuminated areas of my life where I need to cultivate independence and resilience. I want to be a better friend, not just to Troy but to anyone in my life, by learning how to support others without unintentionally creating imbalances in their relationships. Second, I'm committed to fostering healthier boundaries with Troy. While our friendship is precious to me, I recognize the importance of allowing space for him to fully engage in his relationships without feeling like he's caught in the middle. This means reducing our reliance on constant communication and finding ways to maintain our bond in a way that doesn't hinder his ability to nurture other connections. As for Emily, I genuinely hope she and Troy can find a way to rebuild their relationship if that's what they both truly want. While I'm giving them space to work things out, I'm open to having an honest conversation with her in the future if she's willing. I want her to know that my intentions were never to interfere or cause harm and that I respect the role she plays in Troy's life. Ultimately, this experience has been a painful but necessary lesson in self-awareness and growth. I've learned that even the strongest friendships require boundaries and balance, and that love, whether it's platonic or romantic, thrives best when it's nurtured with understanding and respect for everyone involved. My hope is that moving forward, we can all find peace and clarity, and that the relationships we build will be healthier and more fulfilling as a result of what we've learned. Let's read some top comments. First comment was, "I don't think there is anything you can do here. If I'm Emily, I am seeing my fiancé, my future husband, in a codependent relationship with another woman, whom he tells everything about our relationship, who regularly ignores and abandons me to hang out with her when she visits, and who literally moved in with her during his grief. How can she be his wife when he turns to you exclusively, to the point of moving in with you when he needs support? This is not a man who is ready to marry. I'm not saying you did anything wrong, I'm just saying, he clearly doesn't want her in the wife role. If I was her, I would have skipped the ultimatum and just dumped him. It's obvious she can never come close to the role you play in his life. Second comment was, I'm not saying you did anything wrong. Well, shit, I'll say it. I feel badly, especially with the loss of her friend. But Emily is absolutely 100% right. How humiliating it must have been for her to even have to issue an ultimatum, but what else could she do? And then he confirmed her worst fears and chose over her. There is nothing about this relationship that is okay for a man in an engaged or married situation. He left his soon-to-be wife to go live with another woman during a global pandemic. And she asked him to. He ditches his fiancée for whenever she's around. What's that all about? It was responsibility to tell him that if he's going to be married, she needs to be brought into the group, even if only because he wasn't willing to set up that expectation himself. Frankly, they deserve one another, and I hope Emily finds herself a real loyal man. Edit based on latest update. Hopefully, with our continued therapy and eventual boundaries, we can maintain a healthy friendship as well as have healthy relationships with other people. I feel like I'm in the fucking Twilight Zone. Are you kidding me? Eventual boundaries? No. Immediate boundaries. That's the easy part. Hey, I won't ask an engaged man to abandon his fiancée during a global pandemic and live with me and pretend that I didn't know any better because of my grief. See how easy that was? With your eventual boundaries? She posted an update. Hey all. I thought I'd just give you an update on what happened since I made my first post on here. A few hours after Troy broke up with Emily, he broke down in tears and was miserable. He regretted breaking up with her and texted her. They both agreed to talk to each other after a few days when they had the chance to cool off and think things through. I also texted Emily after I got some advice from a DM and apologized for everything and how I may have hurt her. She replied with thanks and that was it, but that was alright. I needed to apologize to her. That evening Troy and I were able to go over the comments from the original post and talk with each other. He and I agreed we needed some space from each other, so that night I called up a coworker and asked if I could crash on their couch for a few days. They agreed, so Troy stayed at my apartment and I went to my coworker's. We didn't talk for 5 days to give each other some space. That was really hard for me because I kept overthinking that Troy hated me and that he didn't want me in his life anymore. I was convinced that I was going to lose him, and that made me miserable because we just lost Adam. But that was just anxiety speaking. He called me after a few days saying that he had spoken with Emily and that they were back together. I was so happy for them and relieved. I wanted to ask for details, but I figured I had stuck my nose into their relationship too much as is, so I didn't ask, and Troy didn't say anything to me. He told me that I should come back to the house though, and I asked if Emily was alright with that. He said yes, so I moved back into my apartment. When I got back to my apartment, I asked him if he was going back to his apartment with Emily, but he said no due to COVID, so he's going to stay with me for the next few weeks minimum. Having had several days apart with no communication was something new for us, so when we were together again we just talked about everything we had been thinking about. We talked about how much we missed Adam, what we could have done to help him, and how guilt we were both holding on to. It also came to the surface that Troy rushed to my side when I asked him to because he was afraid that I was suicidal and he didn't want to lose me either. I felt really guilty about that. I scared Troy and that was never my intention. Then we just started talking about all the memories we had with Adam, and that was really uplifting even if we were crying the whole time. I also told him how I was nervous during our separation time and he said he felt the same way. We laughed at that and agreed that we need to work on our independence from each other more. The next day I got a call from Emily and answered it. She wanted to apologize for assuming I was with Troy and talk about the text I sent her. She and I had an emotional talk for a couple of hours, but eventually, we saw where the other was coming from. She often thought that Adam and I didn't like her, but that was only because he and I hadn't properly included her whenever we were with Troy. However, at the end of the talk, we agreed that we should talk to each other more since Troy is significant in each of our lives. It was good to talk with her and clarify everything. She is a super sweet and considerate woman, and I think she's perfect for Troy. I'd love to be her friend too. Troy and I are going to therapy and are working on our codependence and our grief counseling in our separate therapy sessions. I've also started looking into a codependence group, and I think I'll start attending those meetings, but since there's just one in town, Troy isn't going to join because we don't want to go to the same one. Emily also said that Troy and she are going to start couples therapy, so when he moves back with her, that is what they will be doing. So that's the update. Emily and Troy are back together, Troy will be with me for the next few weeks, and Emily and I started building our friendship. Hopefully from here on out, there will be more communication between those two and better boundaries between me and Troy. Troy and I are willing to put in the effort, and Emily is supportive of us, so I'm optimistic. I'm sure Adam is happy that we're moving forward together. If y'all have any more advice for me or any words of encouragement, I would love to hear them. Thank you all for your help with the initial post though. I don't think this situation would be getting better if you all hadn't helped Troy and me open our eyes. So thank you. Let's read some relevant comments. First comment was, am I the only one who thinks the issue itself isn't resolved whatsoever? I feel like you guys all talked about it without actually doing anything to fix it. The fact that he is going to continue living with you for another few weeks at least pretty much negates everything. Second comment was, nothing changed. I cannot believe this situation. Imagine going to therapy for codependency then still living together. Emily needs to get the hell out and let these two have each other. Third comment was, I feel so bad that she took him back. This isn't going to change. They're still up to the same nonsense, and as soon as they feel a breakthrough on the therapy they'll probably stop going and then they're all back to square one. This isn't an issue that gets solved with short-term therapy. Stuff like this can take years to unravel, especially with how long they've known each other. It's just gonna be him choosing OP again and again until Emily gets sick of it or manages to get him to cut her off. Thank you for listening the story to the end. If you enjoy our videos, so don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Have a good day, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do it and hit the notification bell icon to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.